Hey, what's up? It's Steve. My channel is SignPicker and I collect street signs. Today, I'm going to be showing you all of the stop signs in my collection. After I built these shelves about 4 years ago to showcase my street sign collection, one of the first themes that I created and put up on the wall was a stop and yield sign wall. If you go back far enough in my Instagram, you'll see this photo of that wall. Well, that was many years ago, and I've added more stop and yield signs to my collection since then. And one of my followers commented and suggested that I do a stop sign wall or a yield sign wall. So today, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through my entire collection. I'm going to pull up my stop signs and my yield signs, and I'm going to rebuild that wall. But since I've added so much more to my collection since the last time I did a stop and yield wall, I actually think I might do two separate walls, one for stop and one for yield. So let's start digging and see what we can find. First one I'm gonna pull out is this 24 by 24 inch marble cat eye stop sign from the Auto Club of Southern California. Being that I'm here in Indiana, you don't see a lot of these out here. This was an eBay purchase for me, and the state of California was the first state to figure out the technology that allowed red signage without red being negatively impacted by the rays of the sun. This sign dates back to the 1930s, even though signs across the rest of the United States were yellow until 1954. California had red stop signs all that time. So this guy has some scarring on him on the bottom and the top, kind of where the bolt holes are. But what I love about this is that all 38 cat eye reflectors are present, accounted for, and not cracked. If you flip the sign around, this box here is what holds those reflectors in place, those marbles in place. And it's pretty common for marbled signs like this one to have this box on the back of it to hold those in. There's something rattling around in there. Someday I'll have to pop these bolts off and see what's going on in there, but I'm afraid that the marbles will come loose. So I don't know, we'll see. This marking down here is typical of Auto Club of Southern California signs, and it tells you the location where this sign was posted. It's G5 or G6A15. So if anybody out there knows how to decode that, please let me know. I'd love to know what region of California this came from. This one here is probably one of the oldest signs in my collection. Now we're going to move into here. This is where most of my stop signs are in these shelves. I know I have a lot of 24-inch octagon stop signs here, but I'm also going to be pulling out signs that have stop signs on them as well. That's criteria for the stop sign wall. First one is a stop sign from a school bus. It's made of heavy steel, really sharp corners. We'll cut you with that. Looks like somebody went through and tried to do some touch-up paint around there, which I don't love. I do have the lenses on the one side, but not on the other. I do have those lenses somewhere around here. I just need to pop them back on. I don't know if this still works. Probably not. Well, it wouldn't work because the wires that would go along this end of the sign and be powered by the bus are no longer there. I do love that hard chiseled stop font on this sign. I picked this one out of a barn in Wisconsin back in the 90s. Here's what today's stop sign looks like, although any signs that you see posted in the wild right now would certainly, hopefully, be in much better shape than this one. But as far as the design of the stop sign is concerned, this is it. And this has been the design since 1954, when the standard for stop signs became white text on a red background. Prior to that, it was black text on a yellow background. But you could see this one, it was just faded from years and years of service. But I'll pull it out anyway. Gosh, there's another one that's even worse. Really faded, lots of cracking within here. This is what happens when signs outlive their expected lifespan. The anticipated lifespan of a street sign is 10 to 12 years. This one was certainly out there a lot longer than that. Because of its condition and because I know I have a ton of stop signs, I'm not gonna put this one up on the wall, set it off to the side. But this one is really, really neat. I love this one. Heavy gauge steel, really heavy. Has a white background, which is an added bonus. If you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I love different color backs. But it's got the added four-way message on the top. The standard for stop signs now is stop is the only legend that's going to be on the sign. But back before all of those standards were dialed in, you had stop signs that had messaging sometimes on the top and the bottom. This sign tells you that you've approached an intersection where the four intersecting roads each have a stop sign. The equivalent of this message today would be on a separate sign that is located below the stop sign, and they have done away with putting a number to identify the number of intersections. Now it will just say all way for a four-way stop. Here's an example of what one of those four-way plaques would look like, which would fall under the stop sign. Here's an example, although old and bent, decommissioned, of what an all-way sign looks like. All right, those are all the flat stop signs that I know I have in there of that size. Let's move on to some 24 by 24 embossed stop signs. All right. Here's one that's going to look like an absolute mess, but I'm going to tell you why it's really, really cool. You can see that this is a stop sign that is white text on a red background, but originally this was a yellow background with a black legend and black borders. Here is a sign that was pre-1954, before that standardization change took place. What a lot of municipalities did was try to recycle their existing stop signs and create new stop signs out of the old ones, even if they were embossed. So what we have here is a street department that applied a 1954 standard red stop sign over the old yellow embossed stop sign. If you look really close, the red paint of the new stop sign is flaking off, which is revealing the original yellow paint underneath. If you flip it around, you will see the original yellow here coming through, and you could see the original font style of the stop sign, which is a little more blocky and a little bit more chiseled than today's standard. Here on the side, you could see some of that black paint of the border coming through. And a lot of people have asked if I'm going to restore this. I found this on Facebook Marketplace, and I thought about restoring it, but I didn't think about that very quickly because I think this sign, in its current condition, tells a really cool story about how they tried to upgrade an old style stop sign to the new standard. So for now, until all that new paint flakes off, I'm going to keep it like it is. Here is an original red stop sign. So this one was never yellow. This was manufactured per the 1954 spec. And you could see that the legend of stop is the current font standard and it's embossed. If you flip it around to the back, you'll see that the red is a little more bright. The red here was covered up by the post or whatever this sign was affixed to. And so that post kind of preserved what the natural color of this sign was. But as you can see, a lot of rust has set in on the front as well as on the back, but some of the red is still popping through. I think the rust just adds character. I found this along an abandoned rail line where no trains would come through. It was off in the woods and it had snowed, so the ground was all white, and then I could see the top of this, the red, kind of popping up through the brush along that old rail line. So went and grabbed it, and it's been in my collection ever since. Here's a stop sign that dates about to the 1930s, and this is one of those stop signs that has the added text on top and bottom. This would be warning you that you've approached a busy highway. Interesting, the way through is spelled THRU, but that was the style back then. Again, here on the stop, on the type above and below, you have that more square, chiseled typography that is different than today's signs, which is a little more smooth, especially around the P, around the O. The O is more of an oval to today's standard. This is more blocky. Flip that guy around, there's your yellow background. Couple of what may be some bullet holes in there. And this is just a really heavy sign, as are all embossed street signs from the 1930s and 1940s. Not a stop sign, but this is a predecessor to today's stop ahead signs, which has a stop sign without the word stop, just the symbol and an arrow to tell you that there's a stop sign ahead. Back in the day, it told you that message, but in type, in text, stop ahead. And the reason that they've moved a lot to symbol-based iconography over typography is studies have shown that drivers approaching signs are able to interpret the message through iconography more successfully than they are at reading a lot of text. Figure when you're driving, you're going fast. Sometimes, hopefully you're going the speed limit. And in driving, you have to be aware and you have to make very split-second decisions. And signage that is icon-based is more effective than these word-based signs. All right. Now we are going to come down here where you will find 30 by 30 stop signs like this one right here. This is pretty much the current standard for a stop sign design. This one is a little older, probably from around the 1990s. It has the honeycomb reflectivity sheeting, which is different than today's standard, which is more of a prism or lines. If you look real close on a street sign today, you'll see stripes going across. That's the reflective surface. But I'll pull this one out because when I build a sign wall, I like to have signs that are a lot of different colors, a lot of different shapes. So have the exact same sign down over here, which is 24 by 24, but this size will add some differentiation. Although with a stop sign, other than red and yellow, I'm not going to get a lot of color differentiation. Here's one that came off of the Indiana toll road. This would have been placed at a toll booth where you will have to stop and pay the toll. This sheeting up here is really bubbly and kind of warped. I'm guessing that's just because all of the heat that this sign would endure with semis and all the traffic that comes up to the toll booth really made an impact on the sheeting. I'll flip this one around. Nothing much to see. This is pretty standard. This is how most signs look today. You just have the color of the aluminum material on the back. They don't do color signage anymore on the back. There's really no need to because your headlights are hitting the front of the sign, not the back. It's just a difference in how signs were manufactured today versus how they were manufactured when they were embossed and had color backgrounds. Another current stop sign. Can't have too many stop signs. Here's one that came out of the state of Ohio. And what you'll notice on this stop sign as compared to the approved standard design is the font is more elongated than today's design, which I always thought was neat. I remember growing up in East Chicago, Indiana, there was one of these signs down at the end of the road that my grandmother lived on, and it was different than all of the other stop signs. You don't see too many of these in Indiana. Ohio has largely adopted to the new standard of stop sign, the new design, so you don't see these as much anymore. Former coworker was cleaning out a basement or an attic or something and had this up there, and she knew I loved signs and brought it out to me, so I appreciate that. What I'm looking for now is the current standard version of a stop ahead sign because it's got a stop sign on it. And I'm flipping through a lot of stuff here that has yield signs on them, so I definitely need to create a yield wall that is different than the stop sign wall, which before, when I did this the first time, my stop sign wall and yield sign wall were all one wall. I don't think that's going to cut it this time. Here's the current design of a stop ahead sign. I'll pull that out for the wall just because it does have the stop sign on it. I'm just going to flip through here because sometimes I run across signs that I forgot I had, which is the whole point of doing the sign wall. Featuring signs up on the wall that always get lost within the shelving and I sort of forget that I have them. Sign wall gives me an opportunity to pull all those out and showcase them for a while. All right, here is one that is a bit confusing. This one is stop and yield, but really that is two different things. Either you're going to stop or you're going to yield. You don't do both. Stop means you approach an intersection and you have to come to a complete stop. Once you see that it is safe to go or it's your turn to go, then you can proceed into the intersection. Yield means that you don't always have to stop, but you might have to stop. Yield means that you approach the intersection, you see if there's any oncoming traffic, that if they have the right of way, then you stop or you slow down. Once you determine that it is safe to go, then you can go. If you approach the intersection and there is no traffic, you don't have to stop at all. You just keep going, just proceed with caution. So the whole idea of a stop and yield message on one sign is a little contradictory. Those are really two separate messages that should be on two separate signs. It is impossible to execute both of these actions. You gotta do one or the other. This one definitely falls outside the scope of the manual and uniform traffic control devices. Be that as it may, I love this sign. I'm gonna pull it out for the stop sign wall. Here's one with a stop sign on it. State law, stop, yield for pedestrians. This guy laid to that guy. This has the current standard for reflectivity. You can see those stripes in there. It looks like a freshly mowed lawn. Very, very clean. Lots of cool colors in here. Background looks like Mountain Dew. All right, what kind of big signs can we get into here? Here is a stop sign for a railroad. I'm most likely not going to be able to get it up on the wall because of these huge cast iron brackets on the back. And that's why if I'm struggling with this sign, if it feels like it's a little bit heavier. It's not the sign, it's the bracket. But maybe there's a way I can prop it up there. But technically it does have that stop message and allows me to put a white sign up on the wall. I know for sure back here I've got this big stop sign, but I don't believe that's gonna be able to fit up on the wall. It might. I'm gonna pull it out just in case. School signs. Here's a no passing zone sign, couple of those. All right, no more stop signs. Let me check down here just to make sure. This is not a stop sign, but I have an idea. After I flip past this sign is maybe I should do a wall that features signs that are either stop signs or have the word stop on the sign itself in the message. Never thought about that one before. That would be a massive amount of signs, I think, that I'd be able to put up on that wall. But that's not the theme today, but I'll keep that in mind if I ever run out of ideas. All right, very cool. Now I have something in here, right here. This is a bike trail stop sign. That's why it's a lot smaller than some of the other ones that I've pulled out, even as the warning, up to $250 fine for removing or tampering with this sign. $250 is almost worth it. No, I'm just kidding. Don't steal signs. I got this legally. Fine for that now is probably $10,000 and a ride to a jail cell. Here is a homemade sign, which I love. This was given to me by a coworker whose daughter at the time, it was probably her first Halloween, was a school bus driver, and they made her a wagon that looked like a school bus, and this was hanging off the side. So he had brought her into work, and I saw that stop sign. I was like, I like that sign. And he gave it to me just as a joke, but I think it's pretty neat. Coincidentally, he used to actually work for the street department here in the city at one point. His job was to put up new signs, take down old signs. Kind of my dream job, but my career has moved in another direction, but he's given me this as a gift. No, that's it. No more stop signs. So that is everything. I've gone through my whole collection here, pulled out all of the stop signs that I have. I totally separated yield signs out. I'd even pull those out. I'm going to save that for another video. So now this has become my sign wall of stop signs. So I'm going to pull all these signs off, start building the stop sign wall. All right, there it is, stop sign wall. And as I was cleaning up the garage, I already found one that I did not pull out of the collection. This here is a crosswalk stop sign that a crossing guard would hold up to stop traffic at the beginning or at the end of school. So I was able to get a lot of stop signs up there, a lot of colors, a lot of different shapes, various messaging. You can really see by looking at this wall the evolution of the stop sign, starting from about 1935-ish all the way up to the current standard and everything in between. Yield signs, I'm going to have to save that for another video. But again, go back, check my Instagram feed. You'll see my previous stop and yield wall. And even though I have done this theme before, technically with a stop sign wall, this updated wall came as a result of someone who sent me a comment and a request that they would like to see an updated stop sign wall. So thank you for that feedback. Here it is. If there are any ideas that you have about the types of signs that you'd like to see me pull out of my collection and put up on the wall, please drop those in the comments. I'm running out of ideas, so I could really use your help. If you want to follow along with everything that I'm doing, please subscribe. You can also follow me over on Instagram, over on Facebook, over on TikTok. I'm SignPicker, and I'll see you in the next video.